Your identity is your story.
If you meet me, I'm gonna show you some of the dopest people in the world.
I'm gonna tell my son, man, a man is what he makes in this society. So you gotta go out there and you gotta dig oceans. You gotta build mountains and paint 16 chapels and create the next innovation and inspire everyone that you meet.
Give you that Holyfield, hitting like Holyfield, mixed with some golden.
What is up, world? Today I'm going to be talking about the Holyfield and one of the techniques and learning modalities that we use, which is just as simple as an identity worksheet. I learned something from hip hop called identity construction. I learned this by reading hip hop, religious, and philosophy books about the importance of constructing your identity and how to do so. And it's very much a storytelling technique. It's very much an articulation of who you are technique. But it's so helpful when it comes to creating yourself and your identity, creating your personal brand, but also for creating brand identity for different companies. So people will hire me to help them create their brand identity and put themselves out there, put their businesses out there. But artists can also use this as a way to express themselves and to get into purpose-based creativity. Because a lot of people focus on the outside and appeasing towards the outside when they're creating, but this is a center focused way to create. The Holyfield came because my name is Real J Wallace, and as I was rapping, people would always say, "Oh, the real deal Holyfield, oh, the real deal Holyfield." And when I heard those words together, the first thing that I thought was like this force field. And it made me think of words like love, that are not part of the physical world. They cannot be empirically digested or observed. They're not part of the senses. I thought of trust. I thought of all these words that could fit into this holy field. And that's what I wanted to encompass with my art. I wanted to remind people of feelings. And really, the holy field is a feeling that you give people when they experience you. The Holyfield is a vibe. The Holyfield is a remembrance. The Holyfield is this field that's hard to describe, but it's engaging. And as I start to really discover this, the Holyfield is self-actualization. To get people to want to be themselves more than anything rather than become something or someone else. So not only to get people to want to become more of themselves, but also to get brands to want to become more of themselves. We're not going out there and lying to our customers. We're not being bigger than we are. We're not really pitching. We're conveying what the product allows people to experience. And so this self-actualization is a big part of the Holyfield when it really gets into the feelings of what people, what brands make you feel. And so there's this small identity worksheet and there's these 4 parts. It gets bigger, but we're just going to start on this part. And just imagine, I'm in a classroom with a bunch of people. We have about an hour's worth of class, and we're going to get into our identity. Like, who are we? What is our brand? What does it mean? And how do we eventually tell the story in an authentic way, but that's creative? So the first thing on this worksheet is you put your name, you put the year that it is, you put the date and everything so you can remember. Remembering is a radical tool. Memory is revolutionary. So we're going to get into our memories and we're going to remember who we are and why we do this in a purposeful way. Your identity is your story. So the first thing that you do is you write down what your sign is. If this is for a personal brand or an artist or creator, this is a lot easier. If this is for a brand's identity, what is the sign of your company? When did it come out? If you're a person, what time of birth were you born? What is your sun? What is your moon? What is your rising? I'll use myself, for example, to show you how your identity is your story. My name is Ramel. I was born in 1988, the year of the dragon. Let me stop there. With what I create, I can always fall back on this idea of the dragon. fire, storytelling from what the dragon represents, and March and the year that I was born. So I'm writing stories based off of when I was brought into the world, 1988, what was happening. I go look and I go study what was happening in that year, and I always fall back on my identity. My sun is Pisces, like pi, 3.14. I look at the idea of a Pisces being free flowing. I look at fish. So now I have dragons, fire, fish, water. And I play with those ideas when it comes to my branding, when it comes to me writing poems, when it comes to what I might create as an architect, maybe the movies that I write. Then I look at my moon. My moon is an Aquarius moon. That's an air sign. So now I have air, I have fire, I have water to play around with. And that's just one aspect of it. That could be an entire movie or an entire poem, or that could be a big source of creativity that I could pick from that. And say you don't know your time of birth. This is the perfect excuse to call your parents if you have parents. Spark up a conversation. Don't just bring up the time of birth right away. Have a conversation with your mother or your father or whoever is there and talk about that. If you don't know your time of birth, that's part of the conversation. That's part of your identity. Your identity is your story. And this is going to tell a lot about you. So if we were in the classroom setting or the boardroom setting, I would put that down and start the timer for 2 minutes. Play some good music and let people write those things down. Then we'd come back and we'd go over the topic with the classroom or with the boardroom. Then we would go on to the next subject, which is the etymology of your name. If you don't know what the etymology of your name is, etymology means like the breakdown and the meaning of your name. My name is Ramel, so I'll even break down that word Ra and then Mel, and I'll look at Ra as the sun god. Or I might look at Ram and look at rams. So now I have the sun again and what that represents, giving life, vitamin D, giving nutrition to the plants and the people of the planet. I'll look at Ram as this idea of this spiral. So these are visual indicators of things that I could always talk about. Artists are always talking about being or having writer's block. If you go into your identity and your identity is your story, there's always fun things to play around with just who you are. Then we get into the origins of what your name might be. So this is another excuse to maybe go to your mom or your father and ask them why they named you that. I was named after my mama's best friend's boyfriend because they had a deal, and then my mama liked his name, and I think it was a Filipino dude, and then she blacked it up because it was Ramel, and she dropped the L, put an A, almost like Jamal. But that's a whole other story. My identity is my story, and this is my story, and this is my identity. So it says so much about me, how I came into being. Ramel is also sand in Arabic. So I could talk about time. And I do talk about time in a lot of the things that I create, a lot of the stories that I write, a lot of the music that I create, a lot of the conversations that I have are about time, whether that's the scarcity of it or whether that's about how fluid and odd it is. Even this idea of our identity and who we are when we come into the world reflects on time. The most creative things about our lives are ourselves. There's such a centering thing about who you are and all the scars that you have and all the experiences that you have. And remembering is radical. Memory is revolutionary. So when we get into this idea of the Holyfield, it's tapping into our memories to create a new future. So these are just a couple of these ideas. I'll go into this for a classroom period, maybe 2 hours. I could go into these ideas for about 6 months and help artists with their creative development, help artists get out of writer's block, help artists and brands and organizations develop their ideas further. I can also do their website. I can also help them get PR and publishing. But the root of finding your identity and how to create an abundance of art and creations or content creation is to look at yourself as an infinity pool. You can always tap into your identity because you're always going to have it. And if you don't look at your identity in this life, you can look at your identity in a past life. If you believe in that. If you don't believe in that, that's part of your identity, and your identity is your story. I happen to be Buddhist, and I carry that tradition from the black feminists that I've seen. And I carry that tradition because of people that I've experienced and I remember it. So the Holyfield uses these different techniques to go into schools, go into institutions, go into brands, go into government and say, you know what? I can help you tell a better story just by getting to know who you are and picking out those points in your life that really stand out and showing you how to pick out those points in your life that stand out. If you want to book myself or the Holyfield organization to help you tell a better story by going into your identity and creativity, just hit me up. It goes so deep. That's just one page, and I wanted to take a little bit of time to go into that. We just got into what our sign is and what our etymology is, but it gets into, what are the three identities that you see and relate to the most? What do you see your life as? For me, I'm a fat black male, and I'll always hold those perspectives when I look at everything. Will that change? Yes, it could change, but those have a hold on me with time and with experience. It's hard to shake. It's hard to shake how you first are perceived in the world. I feel like it's a big purpose of mine to help people tell better stories. And the Holyfield is here to help you tell a better story about yourself, about your community, about your experiences, about your joys, about your traumas, about your business, about everything that you're going through and that you've seen. And hopefully you'll be able to tell the story in a better way that reflects your identity, that reflects your resilience, and reflects who you are and who you want to be.
If you meet me, I'ma show you some of the dopest people in the world.
I'm gonna tell my son, man, a man is what he makes in his society. So you gotta go out there and you gotta dig oceans. You gotta build mountains and paint 16 chapels and create the next innovation and inspire everyone that you meet.
Give you that Holyfield, hitting like Holyfield, mixed with some golden.